the people in this tradition, the people I've come across, are the nicest, most caring people I've ever come across.
Mm-hmm.
And they're the only people I really connect with, because they're not interested in sense gratification. Like everybody else, they're working like an ass all day, going to school, working so hard. So, and the free time they get off from this, they take the drugs, they take the sex, they take the this to that to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
But all these people, they're fully satisfied because they have a spiritual practice, and it's the best food I've ever had, and I've never felt so calm, and it's the best life. You know, it's, for me, it's the greatest. All of it, all together, everything about this spiritual tradition.
How you doing?
What are you doing?
I do short interviews with random people.
Are you gonna interview me?
If you'd like to.
Yeah.
You want to do it? Try it?
Okay.
Cool. Are you okay if I record it?
Yeah, sure.
Cool.
So you just stand there?
Yeah, just ask people if they want to have an interview.
Okay.
So what I do is I have short conversations with random people about, and I ask you to pick a belief that you really think is true, and then all I do is ask questions to uncover what you believe, why you believe it, and how you came about knowing that it's true, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So I time it for about 10 minutes, but it's really just to respect people's time. If you want to talk longer, that's
I
fine.
have time.
That's cool?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. What was your name?
Daniel.
Daniel?
Yeah.
Eddie.
Hey.
All right. Let's see. Daniel?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. I can give you some examples of what people tend to talk about, but if you have a belief in mind that you want to talk about, it's really up to you. It could be anything.
Okay.
You want to give some examples, or?
Sure, you can get some.
Okay. So, what people tend to talk about is more supernatural beliefs, but it's not limited to that. It can be really anything. So, I've talked to people about their belief in aliens, their belief that their zodiac signs predict their day, their belief that prayer works, that they believe in the God, or they believe there are no gods, or anything like that. I talked to someone about vaccines, whether harmful or not. It could be anything, but what tends to be more interesting, the talks tend to be more interesting if it's something that you're very confident is true, and it informs you in some way. So like, if you woke up tomorrow and you didn't have that belief, it might change the way you act or something like that. So,
Okay.
do you have any?
Well, it's actually have you heard of the Hare Krishna movement?
Hare Krishna?
Yeah.
I haven't heard like a movement, but I know Krishna is a Hindu god. Is that right?
I guess so, yeah.
Okay, but I don't know of any like a movement or anything like that.
Yeah, so it's in the middle of the 60s. A spiritual teacher from India. He came to New York City.
Okay.
He was 70 years old, and he had nothing. He had about 40 rupees, which is like $7 in American money. And all he had was his trunks of his books that he translated from Sanskrit to English. You've heard of Sanskrit?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the most complicated, oldest language in the world. So he translated these ancient books from Sanskrit to English, and he brought them to America to start a spiritual movement. And this was in the middle of the 60s, so all the hippies and the psychedelics and things like that, the counterculture movement, so things like that, and all these hippies joined this old Swami, because he had this what's called mantra. You've heard of a mantra?
I don't know exactly what it means, but I'm familiar with the term.
It's like a mystical sound vibration used to raise your consciousness. So like
an audible?
Yeah, like so an example is
Okay.
And if you do that, you will like immediately feel this calmness if you Om, you know.
Okay.
But so like that. So I'm in a spiritual tradition, and we repeat this mantra over and over again. We had to do a certain amount on these beads. So it's 108 beads.
Okay.
It's 108, and that's, you know, it's a mystical number in India.
Okay.
So on these beads with your middle finger and your thumb, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and do it over and over again.
So you do it 108 times?
Well, that's one. And I do 16
Gotcha.
of these a day.
Okay. So if we were to kind of hone in on a belief, like a truth claim about this belief, what would be a truth claim? Like, what are you saying about this belief that is true, or something? Or like, how would you phrase it into a sentence or a?
Well, first of all, this it's not just this chanting. It's a whole vast philosophy that comes from India called the Vedic literature. You've heard of it?
Veda.
Yeah. So it's the oldest knowledge in the world and the most vast knowledge in the world. You know. And so basically, the first understanding in this spiritual tradition, which many other spiritual traditions teach, is that you're not this body. This body, this temporary material body, we're seeing through the eyes with, hearing through the ears, smelling through the nose, tasting through the tongue with. This material body is just a vessel. It's like a car. We get in a car, but we're not the car. We're an eternal spiritual being that for some reason or another, we're not in our spirit, we're not conscious of our spiritual nature, our eternal nature right now. So we're in these material bodies. And you've heard of reincarnation? So basically, the understanding is that there's this spiritual realm, this eternal spiritual realm, where life is eternal and blissful. And there's no anxiety, no worries. But for some reason or another, we have a little independence. So we have come to this material world, and this material world, it's like a prison. It's considered a prison, and we're meant to simultaneously like a prison and a school. We're meant to learn. We're meant to suffer, so we can learn that there's something beyond this world. There's something beyond this material world full of duality and full of suffering, and we can go beyond this. And so basically, we're not these bodies.
Let me repeat back what you just said to make sure I understand it correctly. You're saying that we've come to this earth willfully because we have a choice. And we come here to learn something through suffering to realize that there's more.
Yeah, so basically...
Did we not know there's more before that?
Well, so it's a whole philosophy, and it's this philosophy not other religions focus on so much. Other religions, other philosophies, they may believe in God, but they don't know who exactly God is, what God is, you know? But this tradition, it explains that I'm an individual person, you're an individual person. Every living entity is a distinct individual person with distinct likes and activities and so forth. So like that, God is an individual, but he's the supreme individual. He has a form like us. He has activities he likes to do. He has thoughts and desires. And millions of people worship Krishna as God. They worship him in big temples, you know.
Right.
They worship Krishna as God, a person as God. I mean, it just makes sense. In the Bible it says we were made in God's image. So how we look, it must be similar to what God looks like.
Okay. So when I talked about my maybe finding a truth claim or a belief, would this be an accurate belief for you if I said Krishna is real and true? Would that be something that you would agree with?
Yeah.
Can we talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, let's go. Okay, it's already there. So, I want to get a sense of your confidence that Krishna is real and true.
Okay.
So, on a scale from 0 to 100, 0 being meaning I don't have any confidence. I have all questions about this. 100% meaning I have no questions, all confidence. I cannot be mistaken about this. Where would you fall on that as far as the Krishna being real and true?
Well, I'm firmly convinced by the literature that's been given, and I'm firmly convinced by the saintly people in this tradition that what they're saying is true. And the people, so the older Indian man, old Swami, who came in the 60s to spread this movement, never in my life have I come across anyone like him who's so, he's completely beyond this material world, and everything he says is with firm conviction. So
having said all that, where would that put you on that scale? Like, how confident are you from that 0 to 100%? Just get a quick.
That Krishna is God.
Yeah. Where would you put yourself on as your confidence level?
Well, never been asked that question before. Probably like 80%. I don't know.
80%?
You know?
Okay, sure. Okay, so and my next question would be, what's the main reason that gets you to that 80%? Because 80% is still pretty high. But I think you kind of already answered it. You're saying that you've never met someone so I don't think it's what you said, but this is what I'm hearing, is that so wise beyond his form or his, as a person, so, beyond this world, I guess, something like that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, so the saintly person who started this tradition, he was 70 years old, and he took a cargo ship from Calcutta, India to New York. It was actually Boston, to Boston, and from there he went to New York City. But it was 40 days long, the trip, and he had 2 heart attacks on the trip, He was really old and really sick,
Have you ever met this person, or was this...
No, he left his body in 1977.
Okay. So, this is a hypothetical. I'm not necessarily saying this is true, but if you were to discover that this person, this saint that came to New York, actually never did come to New York, and his story was not accurate, would that lower your confidence that Krishna was real and true?
Well, if we're talking about hypothetically, it's kind of I don't know, because hypothetically, say he didn't come, but...
Yeah, let's just say he didn't ever exist, and that was just a story.
Okay.
Like, hypothetically.
Okay.
If you discovered by some way that person actually never existed and it was just a story, would that change your confidence level that Krishna was real and true?
Well, then I wouldn't know about Krishna.
Oh, okay.
Because he translated an immense amount of literature, and he wrote his commentary on it, and it's vast.
Mm.
Like the amount of literature and the little time that he was translating and writing this literature, the amount of time he was here, and the immense amount of literature he compiled is completely mind-boggling. You know,
Okay.
he'd only sleep like 1 or 2 hours a night, and he'd spend 5 or 6 hours a day translating this literature and writing down. And he spent the last 10 years of his life. He circled the globe 14 times, preaching and initiating disciples and talking to the scientists and high people, you know. But I'm firmly convinced by the literature he has given, because never have I come across anything that, to me, it's perfect and it's vast and it's gives all the answers.
Okay. Is it possible that someone could write all this literature that is vast and informative and just filled with so much value, and still be incorrect about what it says?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay. So, like, let's say some other religion, they had holy texts, and someone else would read it and find a lot of value in it and all that stuff. So it's still possible that someone could read something like that and find a true connection to what it's saying, but it still be false.
Yeah, I mean,
like factually incorrect or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, we're all on different paths, and we all see life differently. We all see facts of reality differently. Some may be true, some may not. Some may be partially true, you know. But
yeah. So, do you think that other gods, like the Christian God or Allah or all of them, are true in the same sense that Krishna is true?
Yeah, because in our tradition we believe that other religions, other philosophies, other spiritual traditions, they may have some other concept of God, some other belief in God, but the same God is the same. It's the same God, but people see him differently.
Gotcha. Okay. Is it possible that someone can believe in a God that isn't actually there? So, like, could you think of an example of, throughout history, someone believing in a God that actually wasn't true? Like, is that possible?
Well, I mean, any way you look at it, we're all conditioned souls. We all have such a limited knowledge and limited senses. None of us, through our senses, can we come to the truth about anything.
Okay.
Because, I mean, we're so insignificant. We don't know anything, you know. That's one of the teachings in our traditions, that these senses, they're imperfect. You turn off the lights, you can't see. You know, you can't hear perfectly, you can't smell perfectly, you can't taste perfectly, things like that.
Okay.
It's like our senses are imperfect. So, like that, we may speculate about so many things, but it will not come to the truth. Like in our tradition, it's there's a chain of perfect spiritual masters coming from Krishna, and Krishna came to this earth 5,000 years ago in a holy place in Vrindavan, and he was a child there, and he displayed his activities and things he did, and it's immense literature about it. And then when he was older, he spoke the Bhagavad Gita. You've heard of the Bhagavad Gita, the most famous text on the planet, you know. So there's in our tradition there's a chain of perfect spiritual masters coming from Krishna, unbroken. So a perfected spiritual master gave perfect knowledge to a perfect disciple, and that disciple became a guru and gave it to his disciple, and so forth. So that's and then Srila Prabhupada, he came in the 70s, 60s, and 70s, and he gave everyone this knowledge. So that's our understanding is that we're receiving perfect knowledge from God Himself. So we're not speculating, but other people, you know, they can speculate, and yeah, that's sure they could have some belief in God, some believe in someone who's God who's not factually God, you know. Like in India, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of bogus gurus, and they claim themselves to be God. But in our tradition, in the scriptures, there's God is He's foretold. God, he comes to this material world to establish religious principles, and He comes in different forms and different ages. So He may come and look like this, and He may come and look like this, but the scriptures, they explain Him, and they explain that He comes. And there's actually a great saint, an incarnation of Krishna named Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he came like 550 years ago in Mayapur, India. It's a very holy place in India. And he came, and he was God, but he wasn't acting as God. He was acting as what we call as devotees, people devoted to God, and there's a certain process to come closer to God, and he came not telling everybody he's God. He came to give us the process of how to come closer to God. So this was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was like 7 feet tall, hands down past his knees. And what he propagated, what he started, is the congregational chanting of the holy names of God. So many other religious traditions, they say, chant the names of God. Like in the Christian tradition, everywhere it says, hallowed be thy name. The name of God is holy. Must sing the names of God. But they don't so much look into what actually is God's name. So this is the tradition that was started in India 550 years ago.
I'm not so much interested in the I guess the history of this practice. I want to know the method that you used to conclude that it's true. So I guess my next question is, let's say there's someone over here and they just don't believe any of that is true. Would there be a way to figure out between the two of you which one of you is more correct? So like, let's say they didn't believe in any sort of afterlife or God, and they had doubt that was all true. Would there be a way to distinguish which one of you is more correct?
Well, if you look at it this way, how many spiritual traditions, how many different religions, how many different cultures all across the world for such a long amount of time, you know, history and thousands of years, they all believe that there's an afterlife, that there's some creator, there's I mean, anyone who's taken psychedelics, they know that there's something else going on out there. There's other realms out there.
Okay.
I mean,
So I'm going to repeat back what you're saying, and just let me know if I'm not hearing you correctly. You're saying that because our history of so many people believing in an afterlife, and experiencing it, that is evidence that it is true. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, I guess so. It's I mean, never. I can't give you, this is a fact. I can't give you stone hard. It's just I can't, but
Yeah.
I can give you so many people, so many spiritual traditions for so many ages. They've
Does the amount of people over time who believe in something, does that make that belief true? So, like, if the more people believe, does that contribute to whether it's true or not?
Well, no, of course not. But it's for me, it's just to see if something's true. So, like in science, it's what is it? You do an experiment,
Test it. Yeah.
and if you get the right conclusion or whatever. So in the same way, to see if something is true, you see what these people are doing. These people are in a spiritual tradition. They're chanting Hare Krishna every day. They have a vegetarian diet. They are living a clean, pure life. And if what they're doing, if it brings about better character, then it's true. And it's working. And for me,
Okay.
it's just, this philosophy is logical. It's common sense, But anyways.
Can a belief someone holds that brings them character, could that belief still be mistaken or incorrect, even if it brings them character?
Well, if something is wrong, something's not factual, and it brings them good character. What did you repeat?
So I guess what I'm asking is, can someone be holding a belief that's actually not true? Could they still, can their character still be formed by that false belief?
I mean, I don't know. I'd have to have an example, I don't know.
Yeah, so like, let's see. If someone believed that there was no afterlife, and they thought that this is the only life they had, and it affected their character because they're motivated in some way to make the best of it, I guess. Is that, I guess what I'm asking is, how does the character someone develops through a belief relate to whether that belief is true or not? Like, is it possible to have a belief that changes your character, yet that belief still be mistaken?
Well, I mean, even if, atheists, they think this life is the only life, and after we die, that's it. Everything's over.
Mm-hmm.
But they think, but anyways, let me be a good person. And they're a good person and they have good character. I mean, I don't know, you know, I mean.
Do you think that if a belief changes someone's character, it necessarily is true?
I don't know. What did you say again?
If a belief changes someone's character, good or bad, I guess. Let's just go with good. If it changes someone's character in a good way, does that mean that belief that changed their character is necessarily true?
Well, I mean, I guess they're becoming a better person, so I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter, you know.
It doesn't matter whether it's true or not?
I mean, believe whatever they want, they're being a good person. I mean, let them do their own thing, you know.
Is it important to you that your belief is true, or is it just important that it changes your character in the correct way?
Well, for me, it gives me this belief that I have and this spiritual practice, this chanting that I'm doing. I feel it's slowly making me a better person. I don't fear death anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have anxiety about the past or the future, you know. And I'm fully satisfied. So say it's not true. Say none of this is true. Say Krishna's not God. I'm still satisfied and I'm still happy, you know.
Okay.
And I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So it's not so important to you whether or not this tradition is true. It's important to you the benefits it gives you.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Do you live your life in that manner in other ways? So do you in other parts of your life, they don't revolve around this tradition, which is, you know, I'm sure it's like center, but do you have that outlook as well? So is there anything that you don't worry about whether it's true and worry about how it makes you feel? Is there any example you have outside of this that you used this approach?
I'm not sure I understand.
Like, let me try to give an example. So if you were, here's a real simple one. If you were going to cross the street, and you want to assess the danger of crossing the street, does it matter what the true danger is, or are you more concerned with how that danger makes you feel? Does that make sense?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
You're not sure? So, like, let's say you needed to cross the street, and it's like a busy street or something like that, and instead of trying to figure out the best time, what's the facts of the situation and what would lower your risk of being harmed, or on the other hand, you can just approach and be like, it would make me feel better to believe that I can just walk right past and not have to worry. Do you use that sort of like same approach in simple examples like that?
I guess I could give you an example. So I dropped out of high school, and I've been basically living like a monk, kind of.
Okay.
And living in different, what we call ashrams, they're like monasteries, mainly in Florida. And So say if I was to look at life, it would probably more common sense if I was to finish high school, go to college, and get a job so I could be secured like that. But instead, I'm just saying it feels better if I just try to focus on my spiritual life and I try to live like a monk. It's not so easy.
Yeah.
But if I try, it feels better if I do that instead of doing what everybody else is doing. What makes more common sense to go to college, get a job, and do a lot of unnecessary things like that.
Yeah, I gotcha. I guess what I'm wondering is, are there things in life in which it may be not pleasant and just could be real hardships, but yet it brings about a better character or fulfillment in life? So I guess what I'm saying is, if this life is for us to learn something from it and go and suffer in a way to learn, is avoiding the suffering and going with what feels good, is that, are you going to learn anything from that?
Avoiding
Are you going to
suffering.
build your character from that, you know?
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, that's actually a very good question. So avoiding the suffering and try to, go the easy route, will it actually bring any learning from it?
Right. So if we're here to learn something and we can learn through suffering, is what's true an important aspect of building our character, or is the truth not so important and we should just make sure we are fulfilled spiritually, I guess?
Well, no matter way we go, material life or spiritual life, there's going to be suffering. But it's good. I mean, I guess, a lot of people suffer a lot and they don't learn anything from it, and they keep doing what they're doing. But some people, they suffer a lot as well and they learn a lot from it.
Can you learn what you need to learn if you don't care about the truth?
Repeat it.
Can you grow in your character and learn what needs to be learned without addressing the truth of the matter?
Repeat it one more time.
Let's see if I can maybe rephrase it in a different way. Can someone go out throughout their life not worried about what is true and still learn what needs to be learned?
Well, I mean, if you're looking at my belief, my thoughts, I don't think that really matters, because the spiritual tradition that I've taken to, I believe it,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's what I'm gonna be. That's what I'm gonna refer to. So I guess we're all in different bodies. Some spiritual beings are in plant bodies, insect bodies, human bodies,
Mm-hmm.
dog bodies, cat bodies. But whatever happens to us in that particular lifetime, whether we inquire or are worried about the truth or not, everything that's going on is going on under the direction of God. So everything is going on perfectly.
Mm.
So whatever happens in someone's particular lifetime, that's what's supposed to happen.
Okay.
So it's kind of like
I think I get what you're saying. Let me repeat it back. Even if someone was misguided in the point of this life, and we're operating on a faulty idea of what's true, it's still according to the big plan, and so they can't make a wrong turn because it's all been being controlled. Is that correct?
yeah, there's this saying, not a blade of grass moves without God's will. So in our philosophy, it's I read these books, and over and over again, it says we have no independence. Everything is going on by God's control.
Mm-hmm.
But other places it says, we have a little independence. Because God has full independence, we have a little independence. Since we have the same qualities as God. There's an analogy like a drop of water in the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
It has the same qualities, water, salt, and everything as the whole ocean. So we have the same qualities of God, but in a small form. So yeah, again and again in this literature it says, we have a little independence to go our own way and make our own decisions. But it's I was listening to this Swami yesterday, Radhanath Swami, and someone asked him this question. They said, so we make all these decisions, but aren't these decisions that we're making predetermined by God? And he said, simultaneously, yes and no. We have a little independence to make certain choices. Just like if I can go right now, or I can go left.
Mm-hmm.
I have that decision, but yeah, that's another one. It's inconceivable. I can't really understand,
I have a question. So, how would you tell the difference if you were in a world that was controlled by God in that way, and a world that was not controlled by anything? So, would there be something that you could look for to identify whether everything's in place or nothing's in place? Is there anything that would indicate which world you're in?
So you mean if things were acting perfectly according to God's directions, that's one. And if another was not being perfectly under God's direction,
that was not even being maintained at all, what would be the difference?
well, I don't know if I can really say, if there's a place not maintained, controlled by God. But I can say from our spiritual tradition, because for me, what does it matter what my thoughts are, because
I guess what I'm wondering is, if things weren't controlled, would you even notice? Is it possible that things aren't controlled in that way, maybe in another way, or aren't controlled at all? Is there anything that you could, that indicates to you that that is not true? Or is it simply just a perspective?
Well, I don't know if exactly I can say what you're saying, but I can say that so we all have the decision to live according to God's direction, or we have the independence to not live according to God's direction. And so that's what we see with society today, with humans. There's a difference between humans and animals.
Okay.
And our belief system, it's humans, we have this intelligence. We have more capability than animals. And with that higher intelligence, we can either go according to the laws of God, and or we can go. We have the independence, and the intelligence to go according to God's laws and go back to the spiritual world, or we have the independence and the intelligence to go against God's laws. Where the animals, all the living entities, they're just going under the laws of God, under the laws of nature. So you see, as a result, they're not raping, they're not murdering, they're not polluting the airs and the waters and having all these wars. They're just taking what they need to survive, eating a little bit. And with humans, we have that higher intelligence, so we can either go according to God's laws or go against. And as you see, as a result, human society, we're not so much going according to God's laws, and as a result, you see slaughterhouses everywhere, animals being unnecessarily killed just to be eaten when we don't need to eat animals to survive. And you see all these wars and famine and drought and murder and rape and greed and lust and all this. And this is all because we have this higher intelligence. We have this freedom that the animals don't have. And if we were going with God's laws, then everything would be peaceful. Like in not animal society, everybody is still trying to kill each other for food, but you don't see pollution and war and things like that. And so we have that possibility in our tradition. It's all explained that if we live according to God's laws, then life can be perfectly in harmony. There will be no, there would still be war, but not unnecessary conflict, not all this horrible things that are going on.
Is all those horrible things that you mentioned, are those ultimately part of the plan as well?
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Okay. So I kind of want to get back to the truthfulness of this belief. So you said that, I guess maybe just ask this question a different way. If you were to discover, or I'm sorry, let's just say hypothetically that there was no Krishna and there was no spiritual realm and you are your own body and all those things.
Yeah.
Would you want to know that?
Well, I'll look at it this way. The people in this tradition, the people I've come across, are the nicest, most caring people I've ever come across. And they're the only people I really connect with, because they're not interested in sense gratification. Like everybody else, they're working like an ass all day, going to school, working so hard. So, and the free time they get off from this, they take the drugs, they take the sex, they take the this to that to be happy. But all these people, they're fully satisfied because they have a spiritual practice, and it's the best food I've ever had, and I've never felt so calm, and it's the best life. You know, it's, for me, it's just, it's the greatest. All of it, all together, everything about the spiritual tradition. So, true or not, I'm gonna still keep doing what I'm doing because it brings me happiness and satisfaction, you know, because true or not true, you know, I mean, we all have different beliefs in what's true and what's not, so I mean, you know.
Interesting.
You know.
All right, man.
All right.
What did you think about the talk?
It was good.
Awesome.
Good, yeah.
All right, man.
Yeah.
Take it easy, Daniel.
Yeah, keep doing what you're doing.